My name is Wes Harwood. I'm the lead program designer in that. Several years ago, we revamped our entire nutritional therapy program. And as the program coordinator at that time here at Portland Community College, so I was asked to lead that process. I have since retired, and we have a new replacement in my chair, and that's Amy Evans. Amy is sharing with us tonight. She'll be here momentarily. I'm taken on an adjunct faculty role, so I am one of the faculty for the course, but Amy is the current coordinator. So should you need more questions and answers after we're done tonight, so be it. That'd be the person to contact is Amy. All right, so moving forward, ground rules that I was going through that you couldn't hear. The first is that we are being recorded tonight, so just as we go through, please just be mindful of the courtesies that we extend to all participants and faculty and guests in any classroom setting. We're just trying to be courteous to each other, so just bear that in mind as we go. The video device that you may have on your machine, we encourage you to use it. One of the features of using a Zoom platform like we're using tonight is that you can see each other, and that's a very wonderful tool, and we use it in the classrooms a lot. We'll talk a little bit more about it as we go. If you don't have one attached tonight, or you're not ready to do that tonight where you turn on your own camera, so be it. It's optional tonight, but it will be required if you join us for the program. A feature that you can see now, if you'd like, and try that, if you have in the upper screen, you can also click on where you're seeing the PowerPoint. There should be up in the upper right hand corner an ability to change to what we call the gallery profile, where you'll see everybody who has turned their camera on and who is participating. So that gives you that feeling of, yes, I'm not by myself. I'm here with a bunch of people, and we're sharing our experience together. So I encourage you to do that if you can. If not, that's okay. We'll go along without it. We do have your microphones muted. That's intentional, just because we have a lot to cover really up front. And I'd like to make sure that we get as much of that done as in as short a time as possible. However, just know that we do welcome questions. We do not want to miss any opportunities to make things clear to you. So if you can use the chat feature while we're going through the presentation here, PowerPoint wise, that would be great. I will try and pay attention to that chat feature as we go. So if there's an immediate question you want to try, give that a try. And if you choose, you can also write it down, save that question to the end. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And so plenty of time to catch up then if Amy or I missed the question as we're going through here. And you can save it for the end, and we'll be happy to answer that before we close out for the evening. Okay, so Amy, would you like to chime in and introduce yourself before we get into the program features and just say hi?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. It's so great to have you with us this evening. Thank you so much for being here to spend the evening with us and learn a little bit more about this wonderful functional nutrition program that we have created. I am the full-time coordinator here for many things, including our functional nutrition program and all of the integrative healthcare programs, as well as our mental and behavioral health programs, some of which are one-day classes all the way up to 6-month hybrid programs. And I also coordinate the clinical research program out of here. So wearing many hats, as a lot of people do these days, and keeping very busy. But this program is one of my favorites, the opportunity to help share and support people at large in gaining back their well-being and growing and being stronger every day through nutrition is near and dear to my heart. And I'm excited that all of you are exploring great pathways to do that. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in health science. I spent many years working in community health education I also was a licensed massage therapist, so I certainly understand and appreciate some of the nuances of developing your own business and engaging the public in a variety of facets in that regard, and all of the legwork that's part of embracing a new area of expertise. I do energy healing, and I have a master's in communications, so and spent a lot of time in workforce development. So I feel like this role is such a perfect blending of all my background and passions to be able to help provide training and professional development opportunities to people as they grow and enhance in their passions and work in healthcare. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. And just hearing a little bit about her reminds me that how lucky we are to have her who's taken on the coordinator role for this particular program. So she's a wealth of information, helping you particularly administrative questions or PCC questions or things related to our other programs or related programs. So really, really lucky to have her on board.
Thank you, Wes.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's talk about the program a little bit here. We consider ourselves a very unique program and try and offer it in a unique way. So let's cover some of those right up here. Yes, it's as you may have seen on our website and as you do your explorations, that it is based in the principles of functional medicine. We are definitely looking to address health and well-being from the aspect of what is underlying issues and understand what can we do in the way of prevention and or management of people's health problems from a functional medicine perspective, particularly focusing on that integrative approach, holistic approach, and the role that nutrition, very specifically the role that nutrition has in an integrative teamwork approach using a variety of modalities. Nutrition is just one of many, many modalities, lifestyle management, etc., that promotes health, well-being, and of course even can be therapeutic in many, many situations. So we have that as our basis, and that's our whole mantra of why we do what we do when we do it. The instructors themselves are very well versed in this approach. They come from a variety of backgrounds, they're well credentialed, some have master's degrees or more in their particular field. They're all been trained in nutrition from one way, shape, or another. Some of them have passed the national board that we'll be talking about here, and specifically for the Holistic Nutrition Credentialing Board. So you'll find them having anywhere from a few years to a lot of years of background in their experience. Some of them are healthcare professionals in other means as well. They're practitioners with other licenses and degrees, excuse me. So they have a unique perspective in having that dual credentialing to help you along the way in understanding what's going on here. So we're very proud of our faculty. We give them kudos for contributing what they know. They give input to me and Amy. They give certainly a lot of background and wealth of experience to you as a participant. So we're really, really proud of them.
Wes, before you go on, we've had a request for you to speak up a little louder, or maybe move your
we'll try.
microphone closer to your mouth.
How's that? Is that a little better?
Sounds better to me. How is that for everybody else? Well, let's give that a shot and see how it goes.
Let's give that a try. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the suggestion. Always looking for improvements here. All right, so the next item is I'd like to bring up is that we are science-based. In this day and age of evidence-based medicine, it's really good to have a grasp of that. So we're going to be encouraging you from the very beginning to understand what the literature tells us, what is the best practices as far as what the evidence tells us, what does nutrition mean. That's a very interesting discussion, and you'll have a lot more to talk about. How do we come to find that science? How do we make it meaningful to ourselves? And then how do we translate that to our potential clients and being able to practice that in the real world? So yes, science-based is again, a principle of what we're trying to do here. That also should recognize that there's a lot of traditional wisdom out there that has struggled to get the science behind it because it's very difficult to glean and design programs or research or studies to get the science base that we need. That can be a very expensive, time-consuming process, as you may or may not know. So even though we want more science, what we have to rely on is traditional wisdom. So particularly when you get into things like how herbs and some of the non-medicinal concoctions that we can talk about with our clients in pairing with a really good nutritional approach and lifestyle change approach, it's good to have at least an exposure to that. So we're very proud of the fact that we have an introduction, for instance, in our program to a little bit of Ayurveda wisdom and a little bit of Chinese medicine wisdom and some herbalism from the Western component built into this program. So you get at least a foundation in that, at least a beginning of that, to add to your science-based knowledge and the research that you'll be doing on the role of nutrition in healthcare. Our intention is to provide for you in this program, in a one-year process, a platform for lifelong learning. We have to just remind you right up front that you cannot learn everything all in 1 year. You will get a foundational platform, absolutely. Our goal is to give you a breadth of knowledge, but the depth of knowledge and the experience and how to actually apply it will come from basically the rest of your life in whatever field of endeavor you choose to use this. So some people want it for their personal use. That's fine. If they want to take a program for that reason and or their family or their friends or some kind of a close cadre of interested people in nutrition. Other people want to turn it into their own business. Others will want to add it to what they're already doing as a healthcare provider. So everybody has their own motivation, but the goal there is at least to give that basic platform to a breadth so that the deep dives can happen as you choose paths that you want to pursue in much more depth. As such, we're really glad that part of the value of this program is that you have access to all PCC services. Whether you're in town or not, you can probably access a lot of things online through the PCC platform. You will have an account with PCC. You'll be able to use it email with PCC. You'll be able to plug into things like the library, which is not only their own resources, but because they're part of the interstate library system of colleges and universities, you can learn to research much deeper into the areas that you want. We'll give you a little introduction to that as part of the course so that you know that you have that resource available. You can turn to the librarians and the researchers who can point you the right direction. So that's really a unique service to be able to use that library as just one example. Also, we are proud of the fact that in designing this program and maintaining partnerships in the area, one of the things we do is partner with other schools, particularly schools that do offer that more in-depth training. Examples, we have two other schools here in Portland offered master's degree in nutrition. One is the University of Western States, the chiropractic school here in Portland. The other one is National University of Natural Medicine, the naturopathic school here in Portland. They have both master's degrees, which if you have the mind, the time, the money, the inclination, you can get much more in depth with those kind of educational programs. The nice thing is, the way it is, depending on what state you're in, you don't need to have a master's degree or a doctoral degree to function as a nutritionist. As long as you're following the laws in the state in which you intend to practice and know what those laws are, many states you can practice as a nutritionist with a non-degree program, which of course this is not giving you anything like a master's degree and or a bachelor's degree or anything in that aspect of education, but we do give you the, as we'll see here, a few certificates and the credentials to take an exam that allows you to function in many, many states in the union. Having said that, those partnerships, those schools have been very, very helpful in designing our program so that that breadth of basic knowledge was something that you can use as your springboard. And if you were to decide at some later date that, I really like to have a master's degree, you could be able to apply to those schools and say, this is what I have in my background, and they'd be very familiar with having attended and participated and completed our program here at Portland Community College. That would probably give you a little bit of inside track in your application process, because they know you already have some. They know that you already are successful in what you've learned and you've done at a college level program, and that's a value to them when they're looking at their candidates. So they're very well versed and have been very supportive of this non-degree program that we offer, because it dovetails very nicely into their programs, and they use that in their selection process. We also have a association with the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. Our program has been, for many years, approved by the NANP. In fact, we've been involved as a sponsor school with NANP since early in our experience with them. And that's of value, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, NANP, you'll hear a lot about. It's one of the credentialing organizations. It's also one of your lobbying organization, membership organizations, and has some great features to being associated with them. We really believe in that. So it's an approved program at the national level through the NANP. So some of the details, this is designed, as you may have seen on our website, as a one-year program to complete, designed around the Oregon model of 4 terms per year. It is cohort-based, and one of the really unique details that is here is we're trying to build that cohesiveness of your group from the very, very beginning. This is unique. It's a little more challenge to take an online program with a virtual classroom format and create that environment where you can feel like you're part of a group, where you're part of a team, where you are working together, that you're supporting each other and learning from each other in that kind of non-virtual classroom in the traditional sense. But using a virtual classroom setting, online format is kind of unique. Well, we do that online content in a couple of ways. One is we have a learning management system through Portland Community College called D2L Brightspace. That's one of those management systems that's used by a lot of colleges and universities to present the online content, where to find the readings, where to find the links to videos, where to find the design that this content that instructors have asked for you to take care of and be responsible for. So we use that through PCC. It's part of your student account is having access to all the course materials. And then, of course, you will have also the online class sessions. That's the virtual classroom. Very similar to what we're doing here, in that you have lots of features through Zoom to actually take an online classroom session with your cohort members, as we'll see here, a couple of nights a week. So Zoom is, if you know Zoom, have played with Zoom, been involved with Zoom, you know it has some really unique features that really runs as well to the classroom. One is that you get this visual and auditory interaction. Even though we've muted you for now, you would normally be able to speak up and hear your classmates and the instructors and any guest presenters, and just as if you were in a real classroom. You'd see and hear what's going on and be able to interact with that directly and during the time of class. So all presentations then can be done live. Whoever's doing it, it might be you in a presentation to your classmates, or it might be a guest, or it might be the instructor. So lots of presentations are available. Just about anything that you can create a PowerPoint off, or any other video presentation can be done through Zoom, which allows for that live Q&A again. You can interact directly with whoever the presenter is and get more information right immediately in a timely way, right while you're in class. So instructors will try and design those kind of things around making sure that we're using those kind of Zoom features. Additionally, they can put you into breakout sessions. So maybe there's a little work project or a little kind of discussion question that they want you to spend time on in a smaller group rather than just the large group classroom session. They can break you out just like you can in a brick and mortar school. You can send people down the hall or out into the lobby and meet with your little group and discuss a point or come up with a plan of attack or whatever it is that they're designing into their curriculum. That's available through Zoom as well. And of course, it's recorded. Like this session tonight is being recorded. So that affords you the opportunity to go back later and re-look at any of the classroom sessions. You have access to that for up to 6 months after it's presented. If you happen to miss, even though we highly encourage and sometimes require some attendance depending on the subject being offered, most of the time you will still have responsibilities for life. Life does happen. Things come up, family, work, illness, whatever. So if you happen to miss for some reasonable adult excuse, having a recorded session you can go back and review is really, really an advantage. Now you don't, of course, get that interaction, that live interaction. That's lost in the process, but the recording at least is a saving grace when life intervenes. So Zoom gives us really great access to educational opportunities. Other things to bear in mind is that we use the flipped curriculum concept. Now, I don't know if you've heard of that or experienced it, but it is an approach to education that many universities and colleges are using more and more in not only online classrooms, but in the regular brick and mortar classrooms. They're using what's called a flipped curriculum. So just a quick aside what that means. Compared to the traditional curriculum design, where in college, and you may have had some of these classes, you go in, you listen to the instructor pontificate, be the sage on stage up in front of a group of 40, 100, 150 people, where they're lecturing for an hour or two, and then you're expected to read the book and answer some questions or do some homework or turn in a paper or whatever. That's the traditional kind of model, and that can be effective, but as we know, that can be also extremely boring and repetitive and not the best way to learn things for adults who want to spend their time wisely and with intentionality. The flipped curriculum concept has been touted for well over a decade now, but it's really catching on more and more places, even down into the high school level and junior high level. Found that the flipped curriculum works better. And the idea here is that you will have assignments to do, readings, viewings of videos, maybe a little exercise, maybe a little discussion board, some kind of learning modality before you come to class. So a lot of the basic information is attained before you come to the class. What that allows is then the instructor to design a more interactive and useful classroom presentation, participation focused time, where you're learning it kind of the next level. You're revisiting it, you're chewing on it, you're applying it, you're sharing with each other, you're learning from each other, you're able to ask very interactive questions and answers, and it's a much more adult way of learning, and it's really caught on. So we have, from the design of this curriculum, encouraged our instructors to be flipped curriculum advocates and think about what they can help you learn before you come to class, and then come to class and have it solidified and clarified for you in a meaningful way. So that we do and is kind of unique to a lot of programs that are out there. Now, what do you get? Well, yes, we're not a degree program. The best any college, community college can do in Oregon on the credit side is to offer maybe an associate degree. But there are many for-credit training certificates, and in recognition of the fact that this is a non-credit program, meaning it's basically not offering you a grade towards a degree, a non-credit program is also in the state of Oregon able to grant training certificates. This is a process that was designed by the Oregon Department of Education a few years ago. Community colleges, because they do so much training and workforce development kinds of programs, have been allowed to offer, after they've been reviewed by their college and the Department of Education, training certificates in the non-credit side. And there's some hoops to jump through. There's some guidelines to follow in order to get those training certificates recognized. And I'm proud to say that our program, the Functional Nutrition Program, was the first at community college to be awarded the ability to give training certificates back when we redesigned the program. In fact, you'll get 2 over the course of the year, and that's just because of some hours limitations of what a training certificate can be. But you'll get a training certificate, Functional Nutrition 1 after the first 2 terms, and then a Functional Nutrition 2 after the second 2 terms, which is just a credential. It's something more to show, to hang on your wall, to be able to document what you're doing. You will have a transcript that indicates that, so that's another way of documenting your education is through the transcript, but the certificates are a backup to that because the Department of Education has said PCC can grant those functional nutrition certificates to successful candidates who have completed the requirements of the program. The other thing that we do is unique to our program. We were the first with the National Association of Nutrition Professionals to include in our student tuition and registration their student membership. We have set aside some funds out of your tuition to make sure that you become a student member of the NANP. We'll talk more about that here in a second. But that was unique. There's a couple of schools now that have kind of followed suit. They recognize the value of that. There's a couple other schools that offer that, but we were the first and have carved the way for our students to be student members for that year of participate in the program, and we pay that fee. One of the advantages of that is down the road, you will probably see the value, and we hope you'll see the value in becoming a professional member. Once you've completed a program and jump through the hoops wherever you take your program, there is a status through the NANP to become a professional member as a nutritionist. Well, if you've already become a student member, that process has begun. You've already had that taken care of for the first year, and subsequently you will be eligible for professional membership upon completion of the program. That also makes you eligible by completing the program for the Holistic Nutrition Credentialing Board certification. The HNCB is a sister organization to the NANP. So here, this is the credentialing side of that organization. Different board because they oversee the credential, the exam, the eligibility. So anybody who applies for the exam must prove their eligibility. And the NANP is more the educational lobbying side where your membership means being part of your professional group and you get the benefits of being part of the professional group. Sister organizations with slightly different roles, but they tie the recognition to the fact that you've completed a program that is NANP approved and that your membership is solid with NANP in order to be able to take the credential exam. There's a lot of benefits to that. If you want to look at what it takes to be credentialed through the HNCB and be eligible, there's a listing of that. You might notice that as part of the full certification as a board certified uh, nutritionist through the HNCB, there will be, in addition to our program, some clinical experience hours and some contact hours, many ways to document that. That's after you've taken the program and after you've passed the exam. You will have time up to 2 years to fulfill those hours. I'm not going to go into that requirement tonight. That is their requirement, but you can look that up for now. And then if you have questions, you can contact me or Amy, and we can talk about that more later, should you need questions about any of that process of student membership, professional membership, board certification eligibility, and the contact hours that will be required after all these levels of education and testing have been completed. So a couple words about the NANP. Here's the NANP's website. And there are a number of benefits, too many for me to go into now. Some of them are continuing education opportunities. They're free, offered monthly. There's certainly the benefit of shall we say, an online resource to connect with other professionals nationwide. So they have a messaging and blogging site available to all members. They have a job board, so as jobs are posted nationally, you can stay plugged in and know what's going on nationally and see if there's something in your area or your area of interest that you would like to apply for. There's discounts on cooking utensils and things for your business to build your business. So there's lots of benefits of being a member, to say nothing of being just part of a very proactive organization that's really trying to do the best for you as your lobbying group, as your information group, keeping you plugged in and tuned into what's going on in the profession. So I highly recommend, if you have a couple minutes, just to look at the NANP and what they offer and why we're excited that we're associated with them and why we really, really encourage you to continue that association with them in and beyond your training. You'll get the student benefits, but being a professional member is even more beneficial. While I'm at it, I will mention, so you can put it in your calendar, their national conference. Wonderful experience. Amy has participated in that in her new role. I've gone just about every year since I've been a nutritionist. And the next one will be in Newport Beach, California in April, May of 2020. So just kind of save the date for now. The NANP does have a website that you can go to about their particular conference. And they just completed one for 2019. So if you go there now, what you'll see is some of the after information about the 2019 conference, and see some of the pictures and some of the events and some of the value of being there. You'll see some of the topics there and some of the speakers. So you'll get a sense from the 2019 conference what they're be doing in 2020 in Newport Beach. It's the same kind of really wonderful venue to network, connect, learn some new information, talk to vendors, because of course there's always the vendor resource. So you get a lot of really good in-depth connection with your peers and the people who want to help you be a successful nutritionist. Then as they get more information on the Newport Beach conference, that'll show up on the same site, so you'll be able to start seeing what's going to happen in 2020. By the way, while you are a student in that first year, should you go to 2020, you will be a student. So there's a break on the student registration and fees. You get a benefit by being an ANP student member. Of course, they'll have the information on hotels and those kind of links. And so you'll get the conference rights for hotels. And also, there are a couple of scholarships that NANP offers that as a student with an NANP school, you could apply for a scholarship and perhaps qualify. In fact, we had a student from this recent cohort that's just finishing up this summer who did indeed qualify and earn, because it's an earned scholarship, her way into the NANP conference that was in Tucson this year. And she just had a wonderful time, wrote a really wonderful letter to one of our faculty saying the benefit she got and how valuable it was to her, even as a student, to be at the conference. So again, we're really, really pro NANP and all the things they do for students and professional members. Quick pause while I take a sip. Any questions that I missed, Amy, or I haven't been watching the chat like I should? Now that I'm...
No, I think you're doing great. We haven't had any questions so far. Yeah, now that we've adjusted the sound, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm glad I'm being heard. That helps.
Yes, and if questions do come up, we'll certainly give a lot of Q&A time at the end. But if you do have any questions that come up or have curiosity about some clarification, feel free to add it to the text box.
Yeah, absolutely. Chat in for us. Okay, so more about the program. So here again, just an overview. This you've probably seen on the website. Just so for some context here, here's the 4 terms that we're talking about. We start each fall, so here's what will happen in fall this year. Term 1 is called Foundations. You register for a course called Foundations once you're accepted to the program. And there are 3 modules within that. There's one called Bioscience, which is the short description is that it's the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry minimums that a person who is going to be a nutritionist needs to have. We try and give you that baseline foundational information. For people who are already credentialed professionals in healthcare, a nurse, a paramedic, physician assistant, anybody who's got that background, it may seem like it's a review more than anything else, but it's also good to be on the same page as other people in your cohort so you know what your peers have made, because some of our students don't have that healthcare background and they haven't been in a science class for a while, and so they need some brush up on anatomy, physiology, and a little bit of biochemistry. It's not meant, again, to be overwhelmingly complex, but there are definitely some concepts that you need to have in order to go on and to talk about nutrition and be able to understand the principles of nutritional approaches. Good. In the same term, we have a follow-up to that bioscience. We have what we call the fundamentals. What is basic nutrition? What are the components of basic nutrition that all nutritionists should have before we expound on some of the variations and options that nutritionists can promote or encourage. But the fundamentals need to be broached first. So we get start that in term 1. And along the way, we have a shorter module on the basics, what we call the intro to research and evidence-based therapy. So how do I learn the science? Where do I find it? How do I go about reviewing it? What are some of the things I need to bear in mind when I'm reading an article? What kind of quality of evidence is this? How would I document it if I wanted to use that in writing a paper or a brochure, or just those kind of questions of the basics of finding the research, evaluating it, and then putting it into use. So we'll introduce you to that so that you'll have that right up front as you go into the rest of the program. Winter term is term 2. So upon successful completion of term 1, foundations, you get what we call essentials. You register for that course. And the modules there are starting to hone some of your skills. So you'll get an assessment class, what we call the functional nutritional assessment class. How do you look at people's, where they're at, their health and wellness versus what are some of the problems they're having? Where do those show up in their life? And so some of that will be lab values, not that you're diagnosing. As a nutritionist, virtually every state law in the country does not allow you to diagnose. But when you're dealing with people's problems, you need to have enough of a grasp of what those labs are telling you. What is it that they're bringing to you from their physician that they don't understand that you can help them understand? Not so much, again, diagnose, but explain and put in terms that they understand. So you and your clients can come to an agreement of this is where they stand, and start developing eventually some plans on how they can make a difference in their own lives. Part of that takes some counseling skills. So we use nutritional counseling, but it's from the motivational interviewing paradigm. So if you know anything about uh, making a difference in people's lives and understanding where they're coming from, there's some interviewing skills, some counseling skills that you need to have practiced and understand in order to be a successful communicator, uh, to be able to delve into their personal lives in a very professional way and glean out what are their concerns, and then be able to assess where they're at in their preparation, in their willingness to make a difference in their own lives. So that's the motivational interviewing piece that we use in the nutritional counseling skills. And then finally, there's a module here that introduces you to what we call culinary nutrition. It's about food selection. It's about food preservation, a little bit about food preservation. There's some consideration about menu planning and how to pull suggested dietary guidelines into a person's nutrition, and their ability to deal with that and assessing that and coaching them in how they can make a difference by making the right choices and practices in their life. So that culinary nutrition is kind of a broad base of how can you be of assistance? Now, maybe you're not interested in developing recipes, but just being able to find things to suggest to your client and know what to look for can be a very important piece of that. And then how to help them, maybe even shop. Maybe that's an area that you want to be able to coach in. So what are the things you're looking for, and what can you teach them about what to look for? The proper foods, the whole foods, the right foods, the things that make a difference in their lives. So that's our culinary nutrition. Notice at the end of those first two terms, that's the first certificate that you're granted is having completed those two terms. You're then eligible for the Functional Nutrition 1 certificate completion on your record, on your student records. Term 3 would be in spring for this upcoming cohort. Two basic modules, the larger one being what we call the holistic nutritional therapy. That's taking some of those principles of basic nutrition and also some of these things that you'll start reading about specific nutritional approaches. Maybe it is some of those more common, popular things like the paleo or the Mediterranean or intermittent fasting or elimination diets. There are different approaches that you can then start implementing as, again, a guideline for wellness or a guideline for helping them manage their diagnosed by a healthcare professional some of their, shall we say, diseases and pathologies and problems. So you can use that holistic nutritional therapy as honing your skills in really coming up with approaches to coach, mentor, guide, teach without diagnosing. And that's really the role of a functional nutritionist, a holistic nutritionist, a lot of different terms that you can call yourself depending on your state laws. But the idea is to help people understand what nutrition can mean in their life and the related health, lifestyle choices that go along with eating right. What are the other things they can do to maximize the benefits of eating right in their health and wellness programs? We'll also give you a short module on business and business practices. By term 3, you're starting to think, how am I going to use this? What's my intention? Has that changed over the last couple of terms? Do I want to do something different than what I started with? And how do I go about getting into business or setting up a practice, and what are some of those considerations? So we have a great resource here at Portland Community College, the Small Business Development Center that's tied to the National Small Business Development Organization Administration, and we have an instructor from that department here at PCC who gives you a brief introduction. What does it take to set this up? Thinking, what are the things you need to think about? A business plan. What licensing do you need to display? What kind of permits or business licenses might you need? So what are those kinds of things that you need to think about ahead? Now, some of you may or may not ever start your own business. Some of you may be in business and just need a little kind of nudge to improve your business practices. Or at least you may go in to practice with somebody else. Maybe you're going to be a nutritionist who's working for a practitioner who has a business. And there's great value even as an employee or a contracted employee with that organization to understand why they're concerned about billing and licensing and insurance and those kind of things. So those considerations need to be at least broached to you so that you have that appreciation for yourself or for your partners or for your employers. Anybody you want to be doing business with, you should have at least a little background in it. So we'll give you that in term 3 in preparation for soon to graduate. Well, to graduate, of course, you have to finish term 4. That would be next summer. We're about to enter term 4 for the current cohort here next week. And we call that perspectives. And this is where you add in some unique kind of additional pieces. You notice that there's life cycles, nutritional life cycles. We're looking at 4 basic life cycles. One is the childbearing age, getting mom, and interestingly dad, healthy before they conceive. How do they go through the gestational period of pregnancy in a healthy nutritional way? How does mom get ready for the delivery of the child? And then immediately afterwards, during that nursing period, several month period where mom needs to be healthy so that she can nurse the baby and give it the most optimal chance of life. And so that's the first life cycle that we focus on for a few sessions. Then we move into the child and adolescent session, because the children and adolescents post-weaning need considerations of what's healthy for them and how do you deal with those particular, shall we say, challenges of childhood and developing the tastes and the practices of eating right early in life. Well into, of course, puberty and the adolescent years, and avoiding some of the pitfalls of puberty and adolescent nutritional faux pas, and how do we help with that? Third life cycle is the active adult, the adult who may or may not have good practices and needs good healthy practices. Maybe they're an athlete, maybe they're just an active adult, or maybe they're a sedentary adult that needs, again, some consideration in their lifestyle, but also their nutrition. So the active adult phase. And then finally, we have the later years, the people who have passed into that little less active phase of life, but still want to maintain health and vitality. And maybe they've gone through life and have now or experienced some of those really harder to handle metabolic and health challenges of just getting older, and some of the common diseases of getting older, just thinking that it's part of being old, but really it's not. It may be nutritional and or lifestyle choices. Many, many, many of them are. So we'll address the older adult in that later life cycles phase. So that's the 4 that we focus on for summer term. It may be that you'll find that you really want to work with children because that fascinates you. Maybe you'll want to work with the geriatric population. Maybe you're going to be actively involved in those really staunch athletes. And, you'll find some interests there, and this may help you further get that perspective on what you want to do with your practice and where you want to address yourself. Kind of a fun one to just explore, where can I make a difference as a nutritionist? Then there's our introduction to the Ayurveda and Chinese medicine. We're very fortunate to have literally a guru in herbalism who's going to introduce you to the concepts of basic herbalism, particularly then focusing on the basics of Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, not to make you an expert, but certainly to give you the value of those traditional models again, is what can they tell us? What can they add in? Maybe it's something that will pique your interest that you'll want to go on and explore in much more depth in other programs, other certificate programs, classes, trainings, but you need to have at least an appreciation for that traditional wisdom and what it can offer to what you're doing as a nutritionist. And then finally, in term 4, you'll also be doing a capstone. Now, what we view the capstone is the final evaluation of what and utilization of what you know. Some programs will do a big, long, huge written examination. Well, we're hoping to give you the chance to practice some of that didactic learning in other ways, quizzes and smaller exams and paper writing and those kind of things along the way. And so we don't require a big, long, hairy written exam at this point. We'd rather have you do a capstone. And that's where you will be identifying 3 potential clients. It could be a family member, or one could be a family member. Hopefully it's friends or acquaintances who are willing to act as your client for that term and at least begin that process with them of assessing them and using your skills as a counselor to find out where they're at, what they think their needs are, what their willingness to participate in change, and then begin to address some of their issues if they were a real client. So this is the application piece, and it's done with a mentor. A mentor will be guiding you through that process. You'll be documenting it according to the mentor's requirements to show that you're actually using what you learned. Now, are you an expert? No, nobody expects you to be an expert. Some of you who are practitioners will have a little bit better honed client skills already, but the idea is to prove in a capstone kind of way that you've actually gained something over the last year, that you, proving to yourself and to us as the program, that you have accomplished what you're looking for in the program, so that we can say you have passed, you successfully completed, you get that second certificate with term 3 and term 4 under your belt, and you're eligible to take the national exam. So that's really the evaluation phase in our capstone. Of course, we have a lot more available on all of these modules available. If you want specific questions, we can answer them. The website has a little bit more on it, but that's kind of the program in overview. Starting from wherever you're at, ground zero, if you have no background, some kind of practitioner, well, great if you have that, but through the end that we are now eligible for a credential in nutrition. So I'm going to pause again for a sip here and allow any questions.
Thank you so much, Wes, for such a great summary. Wes helped oversee all of the revisions, as I believe he shared, and is really the expert on all of the history and development of our curriculum and content. So very much appreciate him sharing all of that with us. And we continue to guide the instructors and update to make sure that everything is really latest and greatest to share with you. And our instructors love what they're doing, so they're naturally out there gathering more information and knowing how the field is evolving and all of the assessments and things there.
Yeah.
We do have one question, Wes. Actually, it looks like a couple are there. Yes. The first one is from Renee. She says, Renee says, I'm a larger bodied person and I have some reservations about taking courses in the field of nutrition because of fat phobia and bias in the health field. My concern is regarding the tone and language I can expect in taking this course. I believe in health at every size and want to know if this program will run counter to that philosophy. Renee, I know that we really seek a very bio-individual approach to everything, recognizing that health means different things to different people, but I will let Wes address that a little bit more from some of the curriculum and instructor perspective.
Actually, you started my answer right off the bat, Amy, in that, yes, there is a bio-individual approach, and whatever works for one person is not ever guaranteed to work for another. So while we start with basic foundational concepts, many of those are from the traditional literature and the traditional background, and you'll hear that without being negative in any way. A lot of times from the dietary or dietitian side of things, because they've been, so many years ensconced in what the FDA approach is, et cetera. Some of the national guidelines approaches, et cetera. And while that has some value, it's somewhat limited if that's all they're addressing. So similarly, there are some programs out there, and I don't know much. I know it exists, the HIES, Health at Every Size model. I would say that you won't find a bias for or against it specifically from the program, and I know the instructors try and avoid those biases because they are of the holistic approach, that there are many approaches and no one fits everybody. Rather, that everybody needs a bio-individual approach. You're going to hear that. What is the bio-individual approach? And that's really what functional medicine says is, what is the issue? What are the underlying issues? What are the underlying concerns? What are the imbalances that we need to address? Is it a hormonal issue? Is it an emotional issue? Is it something that is maybe not even needing to be addressed because the health is good? It's just something that the person is concerned about avoiding. Maybe they have a history of hypertension and heart disease in their family, but they're right now, their health is good and prospectively good. So not addressing the concern is more not addressing the health problem, but it's more addressing the concern of, well, how do you maintain a healthy lifestyle for you? What is good for you? What has worked for you? And what is nutritionally sound for you? So I don't think you'll find anybody arguing or downgrading or denigrating any approach, including the Health at Every Size approach. In fact, you may even end up being, particularly if you know something about it, for your cohort, you may end up being somebody who brings attention to that, and that can be of great value to your cohort members to understand your perspective and why you went there and what value you see in there and how their clients might see some value there, and it might open their eyes in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise had to have. And we encourage that. We encourage students to bring their perspectives and then be able to discuss it in a safe environment amongst a cohort of your peers and find out the value, discover the value. And hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Abigail.
Thank you.
Abigail's question.
Yes. So Abigail is asking, after completing the program and passing the Holistic Nutrition Credentialing Board exam, or the NCB exam, what can you legally call yourself in the state of Oregon?
Well, two things. One is you get to explore that. If you're in Oregon, one of your activities I know in the program will be to explore the state that you're in. And I think you will find that Oregon is one of the, shall we say, more loose states in what you call yourself. There are minimal restrictions in Oregon at current. So if you want to call yourself a holistic nutritionist, you're probably fine as long as you pass the program and the exam. If you want to call you a functional nutritionist, at this point, there is no definition in Oregon about a functional nutrition. If you want to call yourself anything but a dietitian, because dietitian is one of the trickiest ones to use, not so much in Oregon, except that if you're a dietitian, you need to pass the dietitian's board exam. That's about the only restriction in Oregon. Other states, some are loose, like Oregon, some are a little more strict, some are extremely stringent. I'll give you an example. Ohio is extremely stringent. In fact, the only people who can practice and say anything about nutrition in Ohio are registered dietitians who've been through at least a bachelor's and preferred master's program or doctoral program in nutrition. So every state's different. You'll get to explore that no matter what state you're at. Doesn't mean you can't practice. It just means you've got to be really, really well versed in what that state says and what you're allowed to call yourself, and then what's your scope and how do you present yourself and what can you really, really do. And we'll have a discussion, several discussions about that along the way, so that you'll have a chance to kind of sort that out for yourself individually.
Great. Thank you, Wes. Any other questions out there?
Good questions.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to venture on, see if anything else pops up as we go here. Investment. Well, there's a time investment in any program. You're going back to school. For whatever reason you choose to go back to school, you're going to have to commit some time. We do, as I said, follow the PCC term schedule. So 4 terms: fall, winter, spring, summer. There is a calendar. So if you're interested, when do those start? When do those finish? Rather than give you the dates now, it's too much detail. You can go online and see when fall term starts and when winter term starts. And then as they add in spring and summer, you'll be able to see the start and end dates. You'll be able to see when the vacations fall. What holidays do we as a college observe? So if you're trying to plan a vacation or some family time or a break time or whatever, just know that you can follow the college term schedule. If you're an Oregonian, you know, those college term schedules tend to follow, in most cases, the public school schedule. A little different if you're in Washington, because Washington doesn't have it exactly the same as the public school, but it's nice to have a calendar you can refer to, just so you know you can find that out. They are 10 to 11 weeks, depending on holidays and how they fall. There's usually a final exam week factored into all that, but you can figure each term is about to 10 to 11 weeks on, and we do meet twice a week. The twice a week, is traditionally on Monday evenings and Wednesday evenings. So Pacific time, we're online in class with our cohort, with our instructor, with any guest presenters, with any participants, twice a week, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific times. So kind of start blocking out in your mind, how are you going to attend as many of those sessions as you can, preferably all, because that's the maximum benefit. You can plan on 6 to 9. Sometimes you go a little less, sometimes you go a little more, depending on the topic of the evening and how many questions are. But that's what the instructors are planning, is a 3-hour session twice a week during the term. If a holiday falls on Monday or Thursday, we adjust accordingly. But then that's why the terms vary a little bit in length, because the college is required to have so many weeks invested in a term. It's a little bit like seat time in high school. Study and preparation, here's our best answer. How much time is this going to take? Well, we always get that question, and the standard answer for a college level course, which this is that students will average somewhere between 1 and 3 hours a week per hour of class. So that's 1 to 3 per hour class. When you multiply that times 6 hours a week, that's 6 to 18 hours a week for those 2 class sessions. Now, some people might be really whiz bangs at the particular topic. They won't take 6 hours. Some people might struggle and need a little more background, need a little more reading, dig a little deeper. They may go up closer to that 18 hours, but that's the budgeted time that we recommend students to consider, is somewhere in that 6 to 18 hours. Now, my recommendation as a faculty member and as an educator is don't try and do it all 18 hours on Sunday night. Be wise. You know your study habits, you know your schedule, you know your family commitments and work commitments. Try and average, figure out some kind of small piece every day or every other day where you're hitting the books again, you're doing what's required, looking at how you prepare for the next class. Just plan on breaking it up and be easy on yourself. Don't try and cram it all in at a time. You may find that you're getting it done a lot quicker because you're doing it in small, focused increments than trying to do a big cram session. Do you have any comments on that, Amy? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think for any healthy learning, it's good to take some time and build up rather than crashing. It's always helpful to have subjects revisited and reinforced, which is part of the flipped curriculum design and things. That said, it is possible, when life happens, that you can catch up. We have certainly built this with the busy professional in mind, but to maximize your benefit from it, we really encourage you to set aside some time and plan to invest some of that time over the course of the week pretty consistently. I also wanted to clarify, we did have a question about what evenings the classes are delivered, and it is every Monday and Thursday.
Oh, I
so we break it up a little bit for you
Monday
there.
and Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure, I think that is what you said, Wes, but it might not have been what everybody heard. So,
Yeah,
great.
Monday and
Thanks.
Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. There are people who don't live in the same time zone, and they just have to adjust accordingly. We found that when we're meeting people in multiple time zones, we just found 6 to 9 Pacific is the most amenable to running the class. If you're a little late, okay, come in a little late. You get home from work a little late, or you have some other interruption in your life. We understand. Come late. It's better than not coming at all. So we highly encourage just that participation whenever you can. And of course, you can always look at the recording as well. Oh, by the way, that's one of the advantages of the flipped curriculum is you will know ahead, at least a couple of weeks ahead, what you're going to be doing on any one night. So if you're finding yourself ahead of the game, you can go and start on other preparatory kinds of things before it's time to get ready. But we try and make sure that you are thinking at least a week ahead. What do I need to do for next Monday night, and how do I need to plan it in? Oh, well, by the way, I got something this Thursday. What is it this Thursday that I was supposed to get done? Just start thinking in Monday and Thursday and making sure that you are prepared ahead of time, because a flipped curriculum, if you're not prepared, you're going to miss a lot. You're just not going to be ready to attend the class and get the maximum advantage. You can still attend, it just won't be to your maximum advantage if you haven't done that preparatory work. So it's getting used to that slightly different approach than what you're probably used to in most classes. All right, more about the investment. Of course, people talk about what's it going to cost me. Well, this is on the website, the most up to date. It is $62.96, right, Amy? It hasn't changed this year, did it?
No, that is the same price.
That's what I thought.
Yep, great.
That's not my bailiwick anymore. So $62.96 if you're adding up the tuition for 4 terms. If you break that down per certificate, that's $31.48 or $15.74 per term, however you like to think about it in dollars and cents wise. There is an additional fee because it's an online class, and virtually every class who has an online component to it, a little bit or a lot, will have an online technology fee. So each term there's an additional $20 the college will assess, just so we can be one of those up-to-date 21st century online classes. We will include in that your student membership for that first year. We pay that student membership fee for you so that you get the benefits right up front. Once you're enrolled, we have a process where we make sure that you get your student membership as soon as possible. And that will include, as soon as we can get it to you and you're a member, the exam resource guide from the HNCB, meaning that you can see ahead of time kind of what the exam entails. You can start thinking about how you're going to get yourself prepared right up front, and think about, okay, I need to focus in certain areas. Maybe you recognize up front if you have a weakness. Maybe it's anatomy and physiology. You just know up front, because that's going to be on the exam, you're going to have to spend a little extra time on it. That may be helpful to you. So we'll try and get that to you as soon as possible after you're a student member. And then when it comes time to register, which won't be until the following term 4, we will pay the exam fees for you, and we'll have some parameters around that as we go, because we do want to include that exam fee for you in your registration, your $62.96. You get your exam fee paid with the first time for the HNCB exam. More about that to come. But just know we really, really want you to take that exam in a timely manner after you've completed the program. And so there's a process and a fee, and we just will make sure that that's not a barrier to you as you get to the close of your program. What the $62.96 does not include is the professional membership. Remember I said that the exam has some requirements. Passing the program is one of them. The other is taking your student member at the end of 1 year and turning it into professional membership. So you will need to be responsible for that professional membership fee, even though we're paying for your exam fee. If you decide not to take the exam, which we'll talk again more about later, and don't want to take the exam, but you still want to be a member, that's fine. You can be a professional member, but you got to follow their rules. And So that'll be up to you to make those decisions near the end of your program. What do you want to do about your student membership? What do you want to do about your exam? And how does that all dovetail together? And we'll cover that much, much, much more detail in your fourth term. And of course, books. I'll let you come back here in a second. Books are not included. People ask, how much are the books? Well, I can tell you, you're going to get a start on your professional library. We've tried to keep the book required list to a minimum, the things that you really need to have. Some books that are recommended by the HNCB for the exam, and NANP will have a list for you of recommended where they think are important. And if they're not required by our program, we'll have probably something that is of similar value or similar depth to replace what they recommend, but nonetheless, we try and keep that list to a minimum just for cost. You could spend many thousands of dollars in books, but our estimate currently of the required book list for the year is in the $600 to $650 range. Not all at once, they tend to be broken up. Some books you will use many times over the course of the year. Other books you'll use maybe for a particular module, but we try and keep those kind of things to a minimum. So that's what it does not include. Did you have something to add to that, Amy? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just wanted to reinforce part of the beauty of our program and what we're setting you up for is that long-term success, and that is why we're so passionate about the partnership with NANP. It's a wonderful professional community. I see job postings from them all of the time, networking resources, continuing education opportunities, and just a chance to be with other professionals as you're growing the field and both in your individual practice, but supporting the national effort and movements as well. As you all probably know, functional nutrition is a fairly young concept and field, and there's a lot of education and shared efforts that need to go out as states look at restructuring their laws and things. And we, of course, want them structured in a way that is supportive of you and your long-term career goals here. So that's part of why we really get you plugged in from the beginning with that student membership, and then again in that professional membership continuing on. And we do include that exam fee right up front there and things, so that, as Wes shared, that's not a barrier. I had a question about paying for tuition with FAFSA funds and wanted to answer that. The tuition is, our entire department is on the non-credit side of PCC. And one of the pros to that is it means that students throughout the country, and actually we have international students as well, they pay the same whether they're in-state or out of state. Beautiful equity in all of that. But the unfortunate thing is that means that we are on the side of the house that does not qualify for FAFSA funding. So you can't get any of that federal aid towards your tuition, but we are able to accept other stipends, grants, any scholarships that you're able to get. I've had several AmeriCorps Vista stipends, or sometimes veterans or WorkSource opportunities will help fund or co-fund some of the tuition there too if you need. So, and we have payment plans available that we have worked really hard to set up within the college and create a single point of contact for you in that, which might not sound like a lot, but in a large bureaucratic institution, it was actually quite a feat. And we are very excited to have achieved that, so that each certificate, the tuition of that can be paid over the course of that certificate. So you'll set up a payment plan for the first 6 months and then the second 6 months for each of the certificate that you have. So the whole cost of the program, including the exam, is distributed out over those 12 months.
Yeah. So you can spread it out and not pay any interest, which is really one of the values of the payment plan.
Absolutely.
You just have to jump through the hoops with the business office and set that up early rather than late, and be on time all the time. Once you set it up, it's a real advantage to break it up. Absolutely.
Yeah. And because we have that single point of contact, not a lot of hoops in setting that up. Just
well, no, it's fewer than it used to be. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and Amy's the resource if you have more questions about that before you even try. She's the person to turn to, but she'll also point you the right direction. Once you've been admitted, you'll get all this information in a little more detail.
Yes.
Good question. Okay, so who should take this program? Well, it turns out that if you look at the kind of the history of the program and who takes it and who's been most interested in and successful, it kind of is two groups. One is, of course, as I said, that healthcare professional of some uh, background who wants to add a nutrition credential or the information and practical knowledge to their practices. Maybe they don't need the certificate, maybe they don't need to take the exam, but they want to be able to add it to what they're doing. So we've had nurse practitioners and nurses take it. Last cohort, we had a dentists take it. We've had a couple of dentists take it for different reasons. And so, everybody has their rationale of why they want to add it to what they already are in their professional field. So there's a list, and it's not an all-inclusive list, about just about anybody who already is. We've had some massage therapists take it, as an example. We've had a couple of PAs take it. Naturopaths and chiropractors, depending on where they went to school, may or may not need it, but maybe they do. Different chiropractic and naturopathic schools. Certainly we've had at least one herbalist that I'm aware of who took the nutritional therapy because she wanted to have that nutritional component added to her herbalism background. So there's no real restriction. Is what do you want to do with it and who are you? The other group that tends to fill in the seats is the aspiring nutrition, somebody who isn't a healthcare professional of any kind. We've had all kinds of backgrounds of people who want to become a nutritionist. They see the value in that. Personally, like I said, family and friends, maybe as a business, maybe as a educator in the school system. They have some kind of aspiring nutritional career and an idea where they want to do it, but they don't have any background whatsoever at all. So that's why we're trying to take people from where they're at, experienced or not, give them enough so that they can become a nutritionist following the laws of the state they function in, and identifying an area that they can then share their knowledge and skills that they've acquired at this level. And again, setting a foundation for learning down the road. If they want to become an herbalist, they can take an herbalism program. If they want to get into a degree program, they get into a degree program. If they want to become a physician or some other, really professional aspect, they've got a background that a lot of physicians don't have, or physician's assistants or nurse practitioners. They didn't get it in school, and they've already got it before they go to that school. So there's zillions of different reasons to take this program. And that's kind of the two groups that we see the most of. We used to see just the kind of the hanger on, what I call the hanger on, or the person who's interested. But when it became a professional program, it became something that was towards a credential. What we found is the people who were looking for some kind of credential proof that they had nutrition rather than just for fun, just because I want to do it. And that tends to be not the person who get in this program. There are other educational experiences in continuing education, et cetera, community ed that will give you some basics of nutrition without having to take something that's this intense. There's an investment here, time and money, and the people who are just kind of hanging on and for fun, we tend not to see. We tend to see the people who are serious, and we've got a really good group this term. I'm really they're really intense about learning everything they possibly can. They've been picking all of our brains. They've been challenging all of us instructors to kind of take them to the next level. And it's fun to see that those kind of people who really are hungry for the information. No pun intended. All right, so next steps then. The timeline is the applications are open. They're open now and will be until the 9th. We have to cut it off because the term starts. And realistically, after the 9th, it's really hard to accept somebody and get them ready for the term. So we're cutting off the applications by the 9th, but you can do it now. They're available at this website. If you've been on our website, you can find the link to find that application. It's not meant to be onerous. It's meant to find out who you are and why you want to do it, and what your background is, and your motivation and experience, and can you likely handle a college level class. It's mostly to find out who you are, rather than be mean and identify people and screen them out. It's more like let's screen in people for success. Let's make sure that they have the motivation and the skills for success. Acceptance will be then mailed no later than 12th, but sooner rather than later. Once we know that you're candidates for success. You'll get accepted. It's not going to hold you up. In fact, we encouraged you to apply early. Early consideration, if you got it in by the 12th, you're in really good shape. After the 12th, it gets harder and harder, and it's subject to space availability. Our class size, well, there's technically no limit when you talk about an online program, and I'm sure the boss would like 30 or 40 or 50 people a term. But realistically, for a manageable group, we usually see somewhere in the 15 to 18 range. We can go smaller, we can go bigger, but we got to make it worthwhile to do. So we need to have those applications. We need to know your intentions. We'd love to see it by August 12th. We can make all our plans accordingly. You can make your plans accordingly. You can start planning because we'll start giving you information about what to do and how to get ready and how to prepare and how to get registered so that when registration opens in August for fall term, you'll be primed and ready to go. The earlier, the better, but no later than September 9th. Absolutely. September 9th.
Registration, can I add, actually opens for our classes on August 14th. So that's part of why we really encourage that August 12th or the deadline, so that we can get you all of the information you need, gives you plenty of time to get your PCC ID, get all set up and in the system. Also gives you the time to be able to set up your payment plan and things. So it just reduces a lot of the crunch there and lets you have an easier start. You'll have your book list that much earlier and really be able to be more informed as you're preparing to start the next year.
Well put. Thank you. Okay, so all that information, as you said, will come after you are accepted. A lot of information to follow, so the sooner the better again. So here's a couple of dates to bear in mind. You can put in your calendar now so you can plan accordingly. And we'll have an orientation session Wednesday, September 18th. That's the week before the term starts. So we'll just kind of gather you together in a classroom as if you were in class, and we'll talk about the term. We'll talk about a lot of things of how to kind of get yourself oriented. If you haven't done some of the tutorials on D2L or Zoom, we'll point you that direction. So we're just going to do some orientation kinds of things so that you're not confused about what's expected. Starting on September 23rd, Monday the 23rd is the first night of online class. And by the way, just a reminder, in a flipped curriculum, there will be some things to do for that first night of class. So again, the earlier the better, the more likely you can have access to the D2L site for the course materials and the prep work and the things to get ready for class. So just encouraging to be upfront about that. So there you go. Are we at now as far as clarification questions or other questions that we didn't cover or things that we can do now? In fact, I'm going to close this out and I'm going to go to, there we go. Now I'm on the gallery view, so I see a couple of faces. Anybody have questions or thoughts that you, in fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to unmute them, Amy. How about that?
Well, we don't know what they have going on.
So if you have your microphone on, we might hear your background noise. But,
yes,
if you
I
don't
did.
have your microphone on, that's better.
Yes. So I did, first of all, post the direct link. Thank you, Sophia, for joining us. Yeah, everybody, please add your video if you have it and are comfortable doing so. And we can explore a little bit of what part of that real classroom is like, where you really do get to see everybody. We try to provide all of the nonverbals that we can without all of the inconvenience of travel time and joining people from across the country and things. Welcome, Brenda and Megan, we see you there. I did add the direct link to the chat box for the functional nutrition application for 2019. I have received a couple applications already using the 2018 version, and that is perfectly fine. So if you've already begun working on that, I know that we were waiting on our web team to get the new version updated, and it is there now, but I'll be glad to take whichever you want. The big adjustment between last year and this is that we're not requiring the letter of recommendation anymore. We found that that was a little bit of a challenge for a lot of people, and we know that with adult learners, you're self-selecting in because you already have a commitment to learning this. So if you are working from the old application, you can omit that letter of recommendation. So
May I add
great.
just a quick caveat to that?
Please.
While we don't require it, when you become a professional member in a year and you're applying for the exam, one of the things they will ask for is a professional recommendation. So it doesn't mean you stop asking. It means maybe you'll find somebody, if you don't have somebody now, in the next year who will be willing to write a letter of recommendation. So don't let that fall away. It's going to be important in about a year plus. Okay?
Yes. We're just buying you a little more time this way.
Yeah.
Looks like a few people have dropped off. We are right at our time, so that's not surprising, but want to give everybody who's here another chance to ask any questions that they may have.
To make comments or anything?
Yeah, comments or anything?
No, it was very thorough, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You answered a lot of my questions already, so thank you.
Well, they are bound to come up in the meantime, so get a hold of Amy if you have anything.
Okay.
Yes, that's why we have these webinars. We know there's a lot of questions, and we try to cover some of the main ones that we hear quite a bit. So thank you guys for coming and participating.